Joining us now on the line is Senator David Vitter, Republican from Louisiana, currently the top Republican on the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. Senator, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us here.
Good morning, Brian and Larry. Good to be with you.
All right, so big vote on the XL pipeline in the United States Senate. I was there. I was watching the TV. I love watching big votes. I love to see what happens on the floor, all the dynamic. And I got the sense from watching that they really didn't know how the vote was going to come out until the very last second.
That's right. In fact, Brian, I would have guessed that we would have passed that because Mary Landrieu would have gotten more Democratic colleagues to help her out politically. But it failed. That's a shame. But the good news is we're going to come back early, very early, in the new Republican Congress, and we're going to pass that absolutely, no ifs, ands, or buts, and put it on the president's desk.
And what if the president vetoes that?
Well, if he vetoes it, he vetoes it, and we'll keep pushing.
Would you then have the votes if he vetoed it, do you think?
We haven't begun to do that vote count. That's a two-thirds vote in each body, so that's certainly challenging, but we would try to do that. That would be very disappointing because of all the jobs at stake. Most of the American people, the great majority, rightly think that this is a no-brainer. We should have been moving forward with this several years ago. I think that pressure and that debate in our favor is going to build.
Senator Vitter, when you say that you're going to get back and vote on this very early, I got to say almost every Republican holding office over the last few months leading up to the midterms, we asked them, what's the agenda if the Republicans win the majority in the Senate? Very first thing they said was, we're going to pass a bill on the Keystone Pipeline. So will this be priority number one for the new Senate?
It's going to be very early. It's going to be on the short list. I don't know if it's going to be the absolute first major thing we do. That'll be up to the leadership, but it's going to be very early and on that short list.
Tell us about it. It's going to be decided in terms of the Senate race in your state of Louisiana there the first week in December. The Keystone Pipeline obviously is going to be on the short list of issues there. Is this really the death knell now for any hope for Mary Landrieu to win re-election?
Oh, I think the defeat yesterday was enormously embarrassing for her. You know, she's based her whole campaign on the themes of effectiveness and clout, and she sort of disproved all of that in one fell swoop yesterday. And personally, I was startled. You know, there's so many retiring Democrats, and still she couldn't get that done. I was genuinely startled. I thought I would get 61 votes.
One person, I mean, a lot of people thought that the one person who might put her over the top was Dick Durbin, and he was questioned very sharply on the way in of how he's going to vote, and he didn't let anybody know his intentions until he got on the floor. Were you surprised? Did you think Dick Durbin might be the vote that put them over? Well,
my guess was they were going to get a 60th vote, and then Durbin would vote to be 61 so that nobody could say this senator was the deciding vote. That was my guess, and I was wrong.
All right. Well, listen, I want to ask you about another question, if I could. It has to do with what seems to be pending in this town. We hear that at any moment the president is going to come up with a plan that could grant amnesty to somewhere around 5 million people in this country who are here illegally, and he's going to do so without any action by Congress.
Yeah, that seems imminent Thursday or Friday. I think that is a horrible, horrible idea for two different reasons. First of all, it's just bad policy, and it's been proven to be bad policy. You know, we tried this in the 1980s with Congress acting and President Reagan signing into law, and the promise was that was going to solve the problem, would never have to look back. Well, instead of solving the illegal problem, it quadrupled the problem. It encouraged more flow across the border, and what was a problem of maybe 3 million illegal aliens then is over 12 million today. But the second reason I oppose it is really much more serious, and that's because I think that the president is going way beyond his constitutional authority. I think he's shredding the Constitution, breaking the law by doing this without an act of Congress. Presidents have significant power, but they have power to fill in the details of statutes, not to act contrary to statutes. And giving work permits to folks here illegally is just flat out contrary to our law right now. And so I have grave, grave concerns about this illegal action.
What can you do about it?
Well, we're looking at every option, and we're actively meeting about that right now and have been for several weeks. There are two big categories. One is litigate this in court and challenge it in court, and I'm sure somebody will do that, probably not a member, but an outside group or individual of standing. And the second is to try to block or push back on this action by denying the funding necessary to specifically enforce those work permits.
Our guest is Senator David Vitter of Louisiana. And just to follow up, I happen to agree with you with regard to the president overstepping his constitutional authority. But what do you say to those who suggest that, well, you know, President George Herbert Walker Bush did a similar executive action, and President Reagan did a similar executive action after the amnesty plan of '86?
Well, the first thing I say is I don't remember those. I don't remember any executive amnesty. The big 1986 amnesty example we talk about under Reagan was through Congress. And that's a huge difference. That's what we're talking about.
In the intervening months, AP had an article this weekend that said in the intervening months, President Reagan also used executive action to expand it a little bit, and George Herbert Walker Bush did the same for parents of children who had been left behind in the '86 amnesty.
I think this is a whole different category, and the fact that the 1986 action was all about legislative action just makes it fundamentally different.
Yeah. Can I also ask you, just as now that the 2014 midterms are behind us, obviously you know how this town is. It's like the 2016 presidential campaign has begun. A lot of people looking at the governor of your state, Louisiana, Bobby Jindal, as a viable option. Do you think Bobby Jindal would be well served to join the fray and run for president?
Well, I don't know if he'd be well served. I think that's an uphill battle, but I know he's going to run. He hasn't exactly said so, but he's really been running for several years, so that's pretty clear.
You know he's going to run, just based on your understanding of Mr. Jindal and his actions?
Just based on my observing things and reading the paper for the last 3 years.
All right. Well, listen, I mean, I think that a lot of people would, in your state, would love to see him run, and obviously as a senator of that state, would you back his campaign?
Well, actually, next year we have off-year state elections, and I'm running for governor back home to succeed Bobby next year. So I'm completely focused on that, and I'd be focused on the challenges we face as a state. And quite frankly, I don't think I'd get heavily involved in presidential politics at all. We have a lot of challenges in Louisiana and a lot of opportunities, and I'm excited about those. But that is going to be more than a full-time job.
You know what, just very quickly, because we're really out of time and I'm going over here, but I mean, Harry Reid has said that it's not time to get even. Is there going to be some get even when Republicans take over the Senate?
I think the best revenge is living right and living a good life, and I think we're going to try really hard to do things right for the American people. And that will make Harry Reid more miserable than anything else.
That's just a wonderful byproduct of doing right by the American people.
Right.
Well, Senator David Vitter, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Great to be with y'all.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.